Hello everybody, can you get your coffees and take your seats so we can start the meeting please? Thank you. And if you can't hear my voice, it's because you're in deep conversation with somebody. Pardon? Give him a nudge.
Not so bad yourself. Good. I'm here to find it.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
I couldn't see my side. Irene. I declare
Right, we'll start. I think everybody's settled down now. So welcome to the ESLAC meeting this evening. My name's Mary Lee and I chair the ESLAC. Before I start, we introduce everybody and we start proceedings today. I'm going to ask our Officer Jay to talk about the domestic arrangements. So over to Jay.
Thanks, Chair. Please can I request that mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode as to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the council staff present. The toilets, ladies are in the back corner of the room, men's and disabled are back through these doors to the right hand side. The meeting today is open to the public and will be streamed live for subsequent broadcast via the council's website. You should be aware that the council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with the council's published policy. By entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use of those for those images and sound recordings for webcasting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask members to introduce themselves and I'll start with Nabila.
Good evening, I'm David Barker, one of the councillors for the Richmond Ward.
Good evening, I'm Zahira Naz, I'm the councillor for the Darnell Ward.
So I've introduced myself.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Anne Murphy for the Manor Castle Ward.
Hello everyone, my name's Diane Hurst, I'm a councillor for Richmond Ward.
Good evening everyone, my name is Councillor Terry Fox, Manor Castle Ward, I'm also a leader at council.
Good evening, Carl Malooly, I'm the Head of Service for the Local Area Committees for Sheffield City Council.
Hi everyone, I'm Huda Ahmed, I'm the Local Area Committee Manager for the ESLAC.
And Jay's introduced himself, I think.
Yeah, Jay Bell, Democratic Services Officer.
Yeah. We've got other officers around the room, our community support officers, so the edges, and we've got a couple of officers there who are organising the webcasting of the meeting, so that's what they're doing there with all that equipment. So they worked really hard to set it up tonight as well. Okay, any apologies for absence?
Chair, I've received apologies for absence from councillors Mike Drabble and Shonid Richards.
Okay, thank you. Any exclusion of the press and public? No. Any declarations of interest from members? No. Okay, so minutes of the previous meeting, this is for the committee to agree or not to agree, so can we agree these as a true record?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And we're now going to start with the manager's update on what we've been doing in our LAC and how we've been trying to look at how we might spend the money in the best interest of everybody in this area. But just I'll give you a summary of some of the activity we've been undertaking as councillors and officers. So, Huda?
Yeah.
Do you want to try and get that? as close as you can, sir.
Right, okay. You all right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, yes.
Okay. Right, so, hello everyone and welcome. I always put this slide up because it's in the community languages that we have spoken in Sheffield today, and it's because it's just to remind us that we are a very diverse communities in Sheffield. And I always start off by saying hello and welcome, and salam alaikum in Arabic, which is my community language, and sometimes, you know, I think people appreciate that because I think it kind of relates to the communities that we work with. So my presentation, I'm going to talk about the work that we're doing already in terms of the priorities that we set ourselves at the beginning of when we launched the LACs. So I'll talk about the work that we've done around crime, antisocial behaviour in communities and neighbourhoods. And then my colleague, Carl Malulu, who's head of service, he's going to just give you a brief verbal update about the cost of living and what we're doing in the council. So, really, I'm not going to go through everything that we've done because I feel like we've done quite a lot of work, although sometimes I feel people seem that it doesn't seem a lot to the residents and the communities that we're working with, but we have tried really, really hard in the council just to structure ourselves in terms of understanding what is happening around the priorities. So under crime, antisocial behaviour in communities and neighbourhoods, what we've tried to do is have this, we set up the working group, which is made up of services that deal with crime, antisocial behaviour in communities and neighbourhoods, and we've tried to kind of target where the gaps are. So, for example, here, in Richmond Ward, it's been a long process. It's about how do we build that infrastructure in that community in terms of community development worker. And then in terms of antisocial behaviour and crime, we've been working really closely with our colleagues in community safety, and that's one of the reasons that we've asked community safety to come and do a kind of specific presentation about the work they're doing. And then moving on to the other priorities around environment, highways and transport. Again, environment is a massive issue for our areas, particularly certain areas. And what we've tried to do there, again, focus on what is important, what residents have told us are really, really important to them. Like fly tipping is a massive issue, particularly in some areas, and kind of how we deal with litter and waste. So what we've tried to do there is we develop these days of actions where we've involved services that are responsible for tackling fly tipping and waste and so on. And if you remember last time I talked about the day of action we did in Tinsley. We've taken that day of action in Castlebeck, and then we've got one in Darnall as well. And again, it's a work in progress, and we're trying to do our best to kind of think about, well, what else do we need in terms of tackling fly tipping? And one of the things we're kind of working on with members is that education element. How do we get that sense of pride and ownership of our community to kind of take a bit more responsibility when it comes to waste management and so on? And then in terms of children and young people and health and well-being, again, with that, what we've tried to do is use our 100,000 to kind of focus on what is necessary. What do we, where are the gaps when it comes to children and young people and health and well-being? So one of the things we've done is we've put an expression of interest out there, and we've invited applications from community organisations to run a Saturday club because that's where services are saying there are gaps around, entertaining young people, particularly around on Saturdays at weekends, kind of keeping them out of trouble, but providing somewhere where it's free, it's safe, it's warm, where they can, where we provide lunch. So that's something that we focus some of our resources on. But again, we're kind of working again slowly with our voluntary community youth sectors around where else do we need to focus our resources on. And so in terms of the council, we've managed to get our working groups, and we've got our members to lead on those specific working groups. And for the East LAC, we're lucky because we've got in terms of engaging with the community and the voluntary and organisation, we're looking that we've already got established groups. We've got the Richmond Hub, We've got the Darnell and Tinsley stakeholder meeting. We've got the Manor Action Group. We've got the Arthorne Action Group. They've been there a long time, but we're working with members and other services and communities about how do we strengthen those groups and how do we make sure that they're not working in isolation, how do we link in to new formed groups like the Neighbourhood Action Group and so on. So we are, it's work in progress, I have to say. We're not there yet, and we're not going to resolve this overnight, but it's making sure that we're taking on board all the decisions, all the views and opinions of the residents and communities. And just finally, when I came last time, we talked about the 100,000. We broke it down to different priorities. We're slowly trying to kind of figure out where we're going to spend that money, because, like I said earlier, we want to make sure that we're targeting the right issues, the right projects that will make an impact. It's not, and making sure that we're not just working in isolation, that we're involving our partners and our communities and so on. And not only that, we've got the ward pots as well that we've targeted again to the needs of our community, and the community infrastructure levy as well. So all in all, this is what I'm proposing. It's work in progress for us. We're not there. We've not solved everything, and I don't think it's going to take us a while to kind of get to grips with the work that we're doing and to kind of see some real impact. But I'm hoping by the January meeting, when we have our next meeting on the 24th of January, I'd give you some sort of financial breakdown, because by that time I'm hoping that we've spent some of that money and we can give you kind of detailed breakdown of what we spent it on, and also what are the impact that we're having, and so on. So if I pass you, that's the end of my presentation. Again, these are contact details. You know where we are, who to contact. We've got Abby Wilson, who's our CSO for Darnell and Richmond, and then we've got Sophie O'Brien, who's new to the role, and she's our CSO for Manor Castle and Arthorne. And we've got Ella, you'll know Ella Moncombe, who's our she's doing 2 days a week, and she's another CSO. And then we've got Amir Hussain that you've not met. He's our LAC officer. And if you ever want to contact us or have a conversation, if you've got any ideas about, well, I think you should spend this money on this because it works, please get in touch with us or get in touch with your local councillors. So it's enough from me. Fair. I'm going to pass you on to Carl Malulu, who's Head of Service, and he's just going to say something about the cost of living, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda. Yeah, so I haven't got any slides. I've got some slides to follow, but they're on the screen, so I'll just try and sort of be as brief as I can just to give you an update of where we are. So obviously, we're in the autumn now, and we're conscious that the cost of living is really starting to have an impact on the people in the city. So in response to this, Sheffield City Council has created a package of support around fuel, around food and around finance for people who are suffering hardship. And we're looking at statutory and non-statutory provisions for anybody that's in need. And what we've done is we've established like a cost of living sort of crisis group, where we're treating it as an incident. So some of you may be aware that we did this as part of the work we did around COVID in our response to this. So we've set that up, and what we feel that is the local area committees have got a crucial role to play in delivering for the cost of living. So we've set it up, so we've got senior officers who are leading some of this work. It's one of my colleagues, Lorraine Wood, who's actually leading this, but I'm sort of presenting this on her behalf. And what we've done is we've created something what we're calling Neighbour Good, which is our welcoming places or warm spaces you may hear them referred to. We've gone on the Neighbour Good because what we're saying is, again, it's linked to what we did with COVID, is where people were good neighbours and communities came together. We're trying to use that as our sort of approach to try and deal with that and make sure we've got support available in the communities. So we know that this autumn and winter are going to be particularly challenging. So to bring this package to life and sort of to have the impact across the city in Sheffield, we've created this Neighbour Good, and that's how we're badging it, and that's to provide convenient spaces for people to access help, or just to call in to have a warm or a cup of tea and a chat in their local community. So it doesn't need to be anything more than that. And it's about opening up the wider community to what's already in existence. So thinking about what venues are already there and sharing that around the community so that people have got that. I think it's important to recognise that we've worked in partnership with Voluntary Action and voluntary community faith sectors to really sort of try and do that. And what we've come up with is sort of a bit of a sort of digital approach. So I'll talk about you've got something on your table, which is some little postcards. I'll come to talk about that in a second. They're the sort of the first thing. So what we're looking at doing at first is to produce something for frontline workers. So that's something that people who are accessing and working in the communities can work with sort of people that they come across and signpost them to sort of support that's available to them. What we're also looking to do is doing some public-facing information, so something that potentially we could put up in shop windows and things that we can put out there in the communities more. And the third thing we're going to look to produce is sort of a bit of a sticker which will go in these welcoming places so that people will know that this is somewhere that they can access and just go and feel free to just drop in, stay as long as they want and just have a bit of a warm or a cup of tea or whatever is available in that particular space. So what we're trying to do with this Neighbour Good is sort of bring together all participating organisations. So some of you, this may be new to you, hopefully some of you organisations here will have heard of this, but we're trying to knit all that together and bring that all together. And we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So if people see this Neighbour Good sticker, they know it's a safe place to go. But I think the other thing that we're trying to really push is we're trying to avoid stigma. So we don't want people to feel that they're not able to go into these places, that there's a stigma attached to some of these. So we want people to feel comfortable and not sort of feel any shame about, I don't want to turn my heating on, I'm struggling financially, I'm struggling for food, because we want people to access the support. We know how challenging this is going to be for some of our communities. So we're trying to make it as simple and straightforward for people as we can use on that. So actually if people see this sticker, then that will really sort of help them do that. And we're looking to help offer in different ways. So, for instance, and I'll come to talk about some of the offers we've got in the council, but libraries is a welcoming space that we're opening up. Whereas you won't get a cup of tea at a library, but you may have somebody you can speak to and access. So not every place will offer the same thing, but we're looking at making sure we've got sort of a variance of places available. So we've got a timeline that we're working towards, and some of which we're on. So as I said, we've got the sort of the printed copies of the postcards that you'll see on there. We're actually going to get some sort of proper copies that should be distributed soon, and they're going to go to frontline workers within the council and partner agencies, and then from there, like I say, we'll follow up with some other sort of things. We've got the 11 SCC and volunteer-run libraries, as I've touched on. We've also got family centres, so we've got 7 of those. We've got the Sheffield Moor Market, which is obviously centrally located, and then we're also, other organisations are letting us know, so we're creating a sort of a network of information and places that we can access so that people can sort of use the QR codes on the postcards. So the second space is about creating this directory so that people know what's available. So like I said, we've been collating this information. There's been a citizen space survey that's been out there that, again, some people might be aware of and may have contributed towards, and we're currently collating all that together so that we can launch the cost of living website, really, and have that information available to people. And then the idea is that becomes a living document where we can update and amend that as places come on or go as a sort of welcoming place. So just to finish off, to touch on the postcard that you've got on there, so you'll see there are QR codes on there, so it's a two-sided thing. And actually, if you scan over the QR code for the actual thing that you want to access, then you can see there, and that will take you to the website where you can access that information and go through. And like I say, we've got help and advice for money issues, community support helpline, citizens advice Sheffield, and a bit of a guide to cost of living. And then the flip side of that, we've got the location where you can see where the family centres are, where the libraries are, any voluntary community faith sectors, and then also a bit of how you can help. So we're trying to pull this together. What I would say is, again, if this is new to people, if you're aware of any places that we can add to the directory, please let us know. We'll put the details on there. You can contact us through your local area committee and gather that information there. And really just, again, we ask you as people in the community to get the message out there for people. If you see that people are struggling, that you make them aware that this is around and that we really want to support people and have a bit of a community sort of spirit to try and deal with the challenges that we're going to face over the next few months. So that's all I want to say on that. Okay.
Thank you, Carl. Just a sec. So thanks. Just in terms of Huda's presentation, we talked about, some of the funding we are allocated to young people. When we started discussing this process, we knew we had our priorities because we'd done a survey and people had told us what their priorities were, and young people were one of them. Cost of living came along and bang. So we've not changed those priorities, but we have changed maybe a little bit of what we might have done with the money. So in terms of the Kids Saturday Club, that is a bit like having a warm place for kids to go with a bit of food and an activity, and that was the aim of that, to make sure that we have some of our young people helped on a Saturday, rather than just put the money into existing activities or find something for them to do just during the week. It was to help out throughout the week with families and also with young people. And we're going to do something similar with money that we're directing towards older people when we're just setting the criteria for that. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, just to follow on from the cost of living. It was the leader, Terry, who set up the Gold Command, and I picked up the welcoming places. So we've got the QR code, but we've been working with the Developer Academy, which is a tech-based business in the city centre. They're working on an app, no cost to the council or Voluntary Action Sheffield, and hopefully at some point this week this app will be available for folks to download. It's dead easy. If you're looking for financial advice, it'll tell you where to go. If you're looking for a food bank and so forth, it'll provide you those locations closer to yourself. So please watch out for the app as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. And I know by looking at the faces around the room, that some people have run small groups around the area where they knit and natter groups, that kind of thing. So any information, if you want to register that activity with this scheme, that would be really good, and we can get the information down to those groups as well. Okay, you probably know who I'm talking about. Any questions on presentation that Huda did or what Carla's spoken to? Okay, who's going to answer that one?
Yeah, there should be. We should be making not just the QR code, but we've asked, like you said, in again, it'll have the info who you need to. Also, we were speaking to a number of residents. They did what you said. Everybody has a smartphone, and it's important that we use as many as we can. So QR code this week. We also have a leaflet has all the information. And the church, I've had one of the churches in our ward, Dawn, they'd built a bridge. Hopefully get them on the system. So be more big organization active. Please with Volkswagen and Sheffield. Do not respond to any text messages or emails. Thank you, Chair.
And also, all this information is available in our libraries and public libraries. Everybody knows where their own library is. Okay, so 2 questions. Lady there on the front, and then Jonathan.
Can we just take the mic and whoever wants
Yeah, the question was it whether it's going to be in community language, and yes, it does. Sorry, it did say that in my presentation, but yes. So when the information gets out to the public, so at the moment it's for officers, but once it's produced and ready for the sort of communities, it will be available in different languages.
Jonathan?
Otherwise it won't be captured on the thing.
Right. So if like say a small church or a masjid or a synagogue put into this system, and you expect them to open the doors at certain times so there can be warm spaces for communities, is there any chance you're going to bung them a little bit of money to what we're eating costs?
Thank you. Yes. So part of the thing that we're looking at doing, and obviously this is probably something that the sort of local members may want to pick up on, is that we'll look at what available funds we've got to sort of try and access that. So we're looking at supporting agencies for a range of schemes that we've got available to us. So we're accessing of government funding and other things, but obviously there is money available, like sort of was touched on earlier, that we can sort of use to try and fund and support agencies. But I mean, the main thing is, if you get in touch with us and let us know what it is that you offer, then we can look at what's available and how we can work with you to support you on that. So.
Mine was, thank you, Huda, for that presentation. There's something about preemptive stuff on the crime conversation and the ASB. Two things. One is bonfire night is about to be on our doorstep, so it's how we're reacting, particularly Stanford Road. It'd be good to hear if someone can share what might be happening on that. Particularly that someone said to me it's been happening for 40 years the other day. I was like quite shocked. And the other thing was on the litter picking. Great, the Darnell Day was fantastic and hopefully highlighted lots of things. But it's about what next. You know, how do we put things in place if there's no cash?
Yeah, I'm with you. Last year, whenever the council's had a bit of cash, we've been able to put on activities, open the youth clubs till 10 o'clock and so forth. Sometimes we've kept it open till midnight. But last year, without that investment for diversionary activities, it's going to be a challenge again. And we as ward councillors, and if Clive, our MP, was sat here, he'd say something similar. If you look at the cost of clearing up and everything else, with the bobbies on the beat, overtime, everything else, if we did the preventative side around diversionary activities, because it has worked in the past, we get trading standards going out to the shops and so forth, the schools are heavily involved, we have the lantern parade, but without that investment, and I understand from the Police Crime Commissioner or from one of the safety budgets, we've only been given a few £100s. That really doesn't cut it. So I know as ward councillors we're making a contribution to a number of youth groups, but I still think that's not enough. You mentioned Darnell, Tinsley was as bad again, and for me, when we have put on activities, we've been able to engage with these young people, and it's been very, very productive. But over the last years, without that investment, and I know my colleagues have been in touch with the various stakeholders to see if those resources can be made available. But at this point, I am concerned, as you...
It's now the older ones, so there was lovely, amazing stuff done, but we've got 20 to 30-year-olds doing it as well, so it's how we engage with that age group rather than the younger ones, because there was some amazing stuff last year put on for the youngsters, despite that, but it was the older ones.
To ask Simon if he's got anything to add to this. Simon Mitchell's our community safety officer. He's at the back. He's going to be doing the presentation later, but if he wants to add something to that now about dark nights.
We have a particular fixture on Stanford Road as well that we have every year, and the police will back me up on this one. That's adults who are getting involved in it. We get adults throwing fireworks and acting like kids, basically. Doing a lot of work just to follow. I can't see him as you're there, aren't you? Hello. Just to follow up on that, there's quite a lot of money come out of the Safer Communities Partnership, which I'll talk about later on, which is the kind of statutory community safety partnership for the city. A great deal of that is aimed at the east. A lot of it does go into youth provision. There are lantern parades, that sort of reclaim the streets vibe as well. We're trying to get that going a little bit. It's really, really difficult to engage with adults who act like kids on Stanford Road in particular. The police will be out in force. It's part of the policing. There's a really good policing plan, which includes partners as well. It's not just the police, it's that wider policing family. We've done that for the last 5 years. What we are getting better at is identifying where issues are likely to occur, because it can get a little bit like a crystal ball at this, when it gets dark for dark nights. I think we are better at doing that. So long as residents are getting those reports in, and I know there's frustrations around 101 and all that sort of stuff, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. As long as we can get those reports coming in, it does help, honestly, it really does. Right. I know that's not completely answered your question. Some of it I can't answer because we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. That we'll talk about priorities later on. It is a priority for us, but you know, can you take this horrible thing away?
Well, we seem to be slipping into public questions because that's a public question if you like. Yeah, fine. So unless there's any other questions for Huda or Carl, I'll take public questions now. I've not had any written questions sent in, so I'm going to take them from the floor. We have a set period of time for that. And if there aren't any, we will... Okay, so I've got a lady there and then a gentleman over there. So the lady here.
Hi. Hello, my name's Sandra France. I live at Norfolk Park. I've noticed in the notes right back to March about the speeding on Donington Road and the other roads. Some residents attended a meeting on the 23rd of August at the Town Hall. Our councillors were present and some, you as well, yeah. We were promised at the meeting that 3 solutions had been talked about with the traffic officers and things like that, and that we'd have a meeting with residents on these roads to tell us what these were and to talk about them and decide what we're going to do. But despite us contacting the councillor who promised this is like 2 months ago, we've had no response at all about the meeting or what's happening, which we found very disheartening because it's been going on so long, you know, and it's just a really bad lack of communication. So where do we go from here?
No.
So, hi Sandra. I was at that meeting, as you know, and Tom Finnegan-Smith, who's the manager of the services, did say at the meeting that he couldn't give a particular date where he would meet up with local residents because that work is still ongoing and it hasn't actually gone to the committee. It's going to the committee in November, and the chair of that committee is Mazhar Iqbal and Julie Groscourt, and that's one of the reasons why Councillor Iqbal was at that meeting and was again quite clear with you from what I heard that that work will get done with local residents on your road, but the whole scheme itself has not been complete yet, and until that's been completed, then the other work will take place with the other areas that are hoping to get some services in there in terms of parking. So it will happen, but he couldn't give a definite date. He just said he would be in touch. And there is some work taking place in the area already. We had a meeting up there about 2 weeks ago, and other traffic officers have been in the area looking at some of the car parking around your road and other roads. So the work is ongoing, but until that's come to a complete finish, we can't then go and meet and do extra work. Thank you.
Can I just say that wasn't our understanding and the residents who attended. It was the councillor who was arranging a meeting with us. She said they'd looked at 3 plans and they were going to bring them to residents and they'd be meeting September or October. And that is what the residents that attended, that is what we all think. So whether it's a misunderstanding. But
yeah, I'm sorry, Sandra. I think
it wasn't going to be a meeting with the man, the person who was there.
Okay.
It wasn't with him.
Yeah.
It was the councillor who's not here tonight who said she would arrange a meeting.
Well, I'm sorry, that's incorrect then. Sorry. Misinformation. Sorry.
Mazhar, do you want to come? But before you do, can you just tell us what your role is? Tell everybody what the role. Most people won't know won't know about this issue that you're bringing. So people have to bear with us. But if you can just give people a bit of a tiny summary of what's going on, and then what the answer is, if you like.
Was it Sandra? Sorry, missed your name. Yeah, nice to see you again. I'm a councillor for Darnell Ward, and the council in May moved into a new governance model. So where we had an individual leading on a specific area, now we have a group. It's a committee of decisions done by a cross-party committee. So I'm a co-chair for the Transport, Regeneration and Climate Committee. So picking up the point Sandra raised, it's around permit parking around Castlecroft, where the college is, Norfolk Park and so forth. We met with the residents, as you said, in August. I think you're right, Sandra, there were two issues. One was speeding, which we were going to come back and have a conversation with you. Once the first issue, which is the survey work. So if you remember Tom Finnegan-Smith, who's the head of transport services within the council, he explained there was the last piece of work, because we've been in a pandemic, and near the college, I don't know if people are familiar with Castle College, there's a new estate, Castlecroft. That estate is used by commuter parking, so rather than me driving into a car park and paying my whatever fee it is, folks, and we saw this, coming in, driving round until they find a place and then just park. So for us it's to look at how do we A, tackle that for residents, but B, the wider issue was that residents have overwhelmingly said they do not want permit parking in that neighbourhood. So we've taken your comments on board. Because of the pandemic, we don't have real live data on vehicle movement. So this survey has concluded. They are going through that report, and I've been told that hopefully we should have something in a week or two. So one of the residents, Sandra, I think it's a WhatsApp group, as a here, contacted me about 2 weeks ago, and I responded back to him because he asked me to come to a meeting. Without this new information, I wouldn't have been able to answer the questions. So we're hoping in a couple of weeks through you, Chair, there will be a meeting organised with residents and your local councillors to look at the permit parking, but we also said we'd look at the 2 or 3 streets that you've mentioned where we've got speeding traffic. The third bit is, Chair, we do have a 20 mile per hour limit that has been agreed for part of Manor. Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot. So hopefully you'll get the answers that you need at this meeting that's going to be organised shortly. Thank you. So, gentleman over there.
Hi everybody, my name's Alan Ogle from Louise Haig's office. Becoming increasingly concerned with a sort of repeated incidents of violent crime, particularly in Aberthorn. It doesn't feel like that we've got the same sort of multi-agency strategy like there is in other areas, and I just wondered if that's something that is on the agenda or could be addressed. I appreciate there's obviously constraints with budgets, but obviously we've got a lot of resources in the room in the community where we can probably replicate other areas of the city to try and come up with some good ideas to show that this level of violence isn't acceptable in our community.
Okay, Simon, it's a good job you're here tonight. Okay, so is that okay that when Simon does his presentation, you'll get some of those answers, and then we're going to go into breakout groups as well? Yeah, okay, fine.
It's regarding Woodthorpe Secondary School. When the children are being picked up, the traffic on either side, the cars parked on either side of the roads, and it's become a very dangerous situation. If children cross that road, good chance of getting knocked over. Is there any plans looking at that issue regarding parking outside the school on the main road, on Woodthorpe Road? It's in a 20 mile an hour zone, but it's never adhered to.
Yeah, on the, sorry, was it a secondary school or a primary school you were referring to?
Woodthorpe Primary.
Primary. Yeah, I mean, the leader has tasked us, which is Terry Fox there, School Streets. I was out in Walkley today, and happy to take your details today and do something similar with your councillors. Regarding enforcement, The enforcement is done by South Yorkshire Police, so we've had a conversation with the Police Crime Commissioner, and we need to have a conversation with the Chief Constable, because there's too many drivers just flouting that 20-mile-per-hour limit that we've introduced. And until we don't get enforcement and people aren't fined, then that behaviour just continues. So we put in the measures that we can, but we do need our colleagues in South Yorkshire Police to do that. And that's an operational thing. Like the council and like every other public service, they've had 12 years worth of cuts, and if you heard what was said on TV last night, expect further cuts. So it is quite challenging when Simon does his presentation, he can speak to that, but like us, we just don't have the bodies on the floor to enforce the activity. But if it's something that's happening on a regular basis, I know the inspector, she ensures that they get the patrols there, and we bring in parking enforcement. But picking up the policy that the leaders asked us to look at, he wants us to increase the number of school streets across the city, and that prevents that bad parking. I mean, the primary kids, you can't see them above the bonnet. No. It is absolutely frightening. All the visits I've done, honestly, as a parent myself, those kids, that journey to school should be happy and fun. Instead, these kids were pointing, I can't cross there because of a speeding car. So it's not a good experience. So hence why we're taking this as a high priority, and happy, as I said, to come out with your ward councillors on a school in the morning, walk with parents.
The main issue is, opposite school, you've got a residents' houses on one side, residents park on the road there, then you get cars parking on the grass verge, with the lines clearly marked on the road and parking on it, they shouldn't do. And you're also parking on the other side, so it's a very narrow.
You need to tackle it, sir. Happy to come up.
Well, I say I'm new to these meetings, so obviously this is why I'm fetching these up, because it's been happening for quite a while.
But happy to come up, and we've got some officers here who can also pick that up as well.
Yeah. Because they're not doing to 20 mile an hour.
No, they're not. Either. And we are, the final point I'd like to make, outside London, we were told earlier this year that we have the highest rate of accidents and fatalities between the ages of 0 to 15, which is an appalling data, and it's not something we should be proud of. So hence why we want to try and increase the number of school streets.
Because sure, prevention is better than somebody getting killed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Terry Fox.
Thanks. Just on that, I've been around a number of lakes as leader, not only my own tonight, and transport is a real major issue. So I understand where Sandra's coming from about it, but we've only got so much we can do in so much time and the capacity and resources. But if you was to ask any enforcement officers here, they would tell you as soon as they drive up, the parents, and this is the key, these are the people dropping their kids off who are doing some of the parking. So we have tried, and we do get around the enforcement, we do it on a rota basis, so nobody knows where we're coming, etc. The issue is prevention. Because if people are not, as you say, about the 20 mile an hour, and so school streets where we've worked, I think Matt's told me, I think we've rolled about 9 out, and we're doing it, it's a policy that we want to accelerate across at certain times of the day, prevention from any traffic movement in that area, so that kids can be free to walk to school as they should be. And I think that is the right thing to do, and roll that across all the city, where we possibly can, obviously taking into concern of the residents. But I think the biggest issue, when we've been out, certainly to the local schools, etc., is the head teachers, principals, etc., all come and tell us, all those that were on wardens are, that they're pulling the air out, and for many of them, it really is a kind of hit and miss with kids crossing at certain times. So it's something we're really wanting to tackle down. We're going hard on enforcement, but it's very hard because as soon as they see you come in, they move. So prevention is the next best. But as Mazza says, task them, we are going to tackle it.
So we'll get your details, and Mazza, and we'll make an arrangement and go out and see. And the local councillors, yeah, of course, the local councillors, yeah.
Right, you're on about cars and everything. What about whacking big lorries? Come up Calvert Road. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I live in Calvert Road. The Spinmore Road School. We've got lorries coming up over 7.5 tonnes, big wagons, skip wagons, motorway wagons, everything. And they always seem to come round when kids are going to school or coming out. There's no 20 mile an hour or anything. I've had a word with us over it. And they're still coming up. And if a child runs out of the road and a lorry gets him like that, that child's got no chance whatsoever.
That's
Nice to see you, Christine. I thought you were going to string me up then for a second. No, I mean, you know, we've been campaigning to try and stop HGVs coming. Again, both myself here and Mary, and if Clive was sat here, he'd be championing the same cause. We have managed to try and look at how we restrict HGVs. I don't know if you remember Neil Parra from many moons ago.
Yeah, there is a sign. For 7.5 tonnes. It's pointing up Palmer Road.
Christine, should we just let Mazza finish then? If you want to add something, that'd be great.
So, there's a bit of work we need to do. The problem we've got is, round there, you've got a lot of heavy industry, Fletchers, Broadbanks and others, and unfortunately, if we could go back in time, we wouldn't have had that mix, because we pick up the dust issues regarding Fletchers on the Phillimore estate. So, regarding the school itself, there's a consultation we've come out. We're doing some improvements down at Atcliffe, and we are looking at some of the other streets. So I've not got the details of the consultation, Chair, but I know it's imminent. But I'll have a chat with you later. But I know we are trying to restrict HGV vehicles in the area.
Christine, there is this consultation that Mazza's talking about. There's going to be a public meeting at Phillimore School organised shortly. I think, Hudder, we can get that date, we can find out the date and make sure that you get that. So, I mean, it's just round the corner from yourself, so you can please do attend that one. Okay, we have put, I know there was we had a fatality there, as you know, just over a year, well, more than a year ago now. We have taken some measures. I think there's a police investigation probably still ongoing on that one. But as I say, please come to the Phillimore consultation, because I think, you know, what you'll see there will maybe address some of those issues you're raising tonight. Thank you. I think that's it as far as public questions are concerned. Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to talk about community safety now. We have a presentation, and then we'd like to go into breakout groups so that everybody can. I think Simon's got some questions at the end, and we'll be able to have our say in a smaller group of people.
I've got this.
Right, so we are.
You know what you do, don't you, Simon? Simon, you need to be here.
That's all right. I'm close to it. Right, that's all right. Yeah. Can you hear me at the back? Yes. Can you see me at the back? That's another issue. Right. So I'm Simon Mitchell. I'm the community safety manager for the council. So I work for the council. I manage a team that, go into it, but I manage a team that contributes to the reduction of crime and antisocial behaviour. Okay? I'm going to talk for a little bit, 3 or 4 slides, nothing major. Then I'm going to get some real people, not that I'm not a real person, but I'm going to get some real people to come up. You'll see that at the back of the room, our assistant community officers, or a few of them. They're going to talk about themselves, they're just like that. But they're going to talk about some of the work that they're doing out there. You might have seen them already. If you haven't seen them already, you will. And that's what we're doing here, really. So, without any further ado, can I have the next slide, please? I've always wanted to say.
You can use that.
Can I? Can I do it? Have I got the power to do this as well? This is good, this. Right, okay, so this is what we're going to do. What we do, I'm just going to go through what my team does, obviously. Sorry, I said this was a very simplistic presentation, didn't I was right. I'm going to look at some of the challenges that we've got. I think it's really important to be honest about some of the challenges we've got around community safety. When I say community safety, I mean reduction in crime and antisocial behaviour. I'm going to talk about some of the positive stuff, and then we're going to go over to Alan, who's going to join me at the front. So, okay, now I'm going to press the button, and either all the lights are going to go off, or we're going to go on to the next slide. See, I told you it didn't work.
It's a little
Oh, it's thick as little, I know. They don't work either.
No.
Go on, you do it.
Right, it's there.
Thank you. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not in charge of the council's IT department. Well, there we go. So, right, this is basically what my team does and the wider team. I've already mentioned that our overall priority is contributing to reducing crime and social behaviour. The important thing, somebody's already mentioned it, I think from the audience, is much better to prevent it. How we do that, we do it lots of different ways. This isn't everything my team does, but I thought these are the most important bits to talk about. You'll see the word coordinate kind of repeated 2 or 3 times on that slide, I think twice. I think that's what makes my team quite unique in the council. It's not criticism of how the council works, but it's going to come out like that, I know it is. It's very often you don't get people who coordinate across the different disciplines in the council. The council being a massive organisation that does lots of different things in lots of different directions. And some of my officers are responsible for making sure that those different directorates and those different disciplines in the council, whether they're social care or whether it's parts of housing, we've got a housing manager at the back, that it's all coming together. Because what we tend to find is that whilst people do a good job, they might just do it in terms of the job that they do. So a housing officer might go out and just do housing stuff, or a police officer might just go out and arrest people. Sorry, that's oversimplifying what we do. It's really important that there's somebody there coordinating it all the time. And I'll explain why that's important in a minute, although you've probably guessed already. We do a lot of what we call problem solving, and all that really means is we're looking at 3 things when we've got a crime or antisocial behaviour problem. We're looking at the victim, or victims, we're looking at who the perpetrators are, and we're looking at whether there's something special about the area. Generally speaking, if you can tackle those 3 things, support those 3 things successfully, it works. Okay? It's just a problem-solving triangle. It has to be simple for me to be able to understand it. I've just demonstrated with the IT. One of the things, and Alan will talk about it, so I won't steal his thunder, is providing and kind of bolstering the visible presence we've got out on the streets. We can't be everywhere all the time, but we do try. So we're working very closely with the local police team. We've got some representatives at the back here. Part of the team case manages some of those really advanced and I'll call them difficult cases of antisocial behaviour where you've got multiple people who are reporting an issue. Often they will end up in court at the end of the day, like some, using different bits of legislation like closure orders where you've had quite serious levels of antisocial behaviour, or where you can prove that somebody's been dealing drugs from a particular property. So that's ending up in court. One of the things, still at the back, talks about organised crime. I think your question was around, really reading through the lines in question, was more about the impact of organised crime that's linked to violence. Am I right? Mass is just in around there? Yeah, is that okay? So what we have in Sheffield, and I could probably talk for hours about this, but look, so I might have to come back and do another presentation if you really want it. In Sheffield, and the council has invested in it heavily, we have something called Fortify. So it's a bit policing, it's got the same talk that it is, and that is our organised crime team for Sheffield. So that isn't just a police resource, it's also got social workers in it and other officers from the council. We get a lot of contributions from housing. And the reason for that is
and it's not a criticism of the police, but they can take it this way if they want. If we leave it to the police just to tackle organised criminals, as for any crime and social behaviour, they will go out, they will deal with that problem, and that problem will carry on more often than not. And the same applies to organised crime. I don't want to frighten anybody in the room. And the other presentation I do about organised crime is kind of certified PG, because it is quite tough. But what we have in Sheffield is very unique. There are other cities that are bigger than us that do not have what a 45 does. And what it does is two jobs. One is disrupt organised criminals, and that is by doing lots of things, but taking assets off them. I'll link to that, it'll go on forever. And the second thing is removing people from exploitation, but also trying to avoid vulnerable people getting involved in exploitation in the first place. There's a hand there, there's a hand there.
Sorry, we just can't hear you.
Can you not?
I keep pushing that to you.
I've got to stand near the PlayStation at the front. Right. Which bit did you miss? Please don't tell me you missed the whole of the 45 thing. Right, that's alright. So the second thing, just in case you didn't hear me, was removing vulnerable people from exploitation. But as I said at the beginning, it's much better if you prevent it in the first place. I'm not just talking about young people either. I'll come on to that when I hate this thing already. The last thing that I just mentioned, I didn't see, was organising the community safety partnership. So, every large town and city in the UK has to have a community safety partnership, which is senior officers from different organisations like the police or the local authority or probation service or whatever it might be. Their job is to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour and to tell people like me to get on with it. I think I've described it well enough. They also manage the PCC's grant as well, so the Police and Crime Commissioner gives out a certain amount of money to the 4 community safety partnerships in South Yorkshire. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that, if that's okay. So, when I have conversations with my mum, I'm trying to sweeten the pill a little bit. I say, Mum, would you like the good news or the bad news first? And she always says the bad news. So on that basis, I'm going to go with the bad news first. So some of the challenges that we've got at the moment. As Carl and everybody else has mentioned, with Carl in particular, cost of living crisis, and also public sector cuts. I don't know about you, I don't know if you look at the news, but I get a feeling that there's going to be something quite heavy that hits us very soon. We may be entering another period of austerity, more than likely. That will affect levels of antisocial behaviour and crime. It will also affect our ability to deal with it as well. Because hopefully we'll have the same resource. I can pretty much guarantee we won't have more. Right. I said this was an honest presentation and I meant it. Can you still hear me at the back? Yeah? If you put your hand up, I know you can't hear me. Is that okay? Yeah. The impact on vulnerable people, I think we see that out on the streets. I think we see it in particular in the city centre. I've had a lot of conversations with Mazza, if he's still here. Yeah. There he is. About the city centre and the impact of, we call them the street cohort, and that's probably the wrong way of putting it really, but those really vulnerable people in the city centre. But we're also seeing the impact of vulnerable people who are not in a city centre. So the mental health services, for example, they are really short of resource and they've got a lot of people to look after, and very often those people are discharged from institutions or hospitals or whatever it might be, or even just care earlier. And that does impact on levels of crime and antisocial behaviour. It's just an example. I think it's really important that we concentrate a lot of our resource on vulnerable people. That also includes vulnerable locations that might have vulnerable people in them as well. Really important that this isn't all about response, and it's a really difficult thing to say because very often it does end up being about response because of the resource that we've got. We've got quite a good resource in Sheffield. We put a lot of investment into fortify all that and everything. That's really good. We really, really want to be on a preventative footing, but an officer, I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like we respond more than we prevent. I think that's probably true. We always, well, I say that because we want to be able to prevent stuff happening in the first place, because actually responding costs more. I think we will see, and Sheffield's been pretty good at navigating through this in the past, so I think we're going to do it again. We do see that if crime increases, we will see demands compete with each other. So we might see an extra pressure on the police to go out. You'll see that the Home Secretary has already said every single burglary that happened, it doesn't matter how you feel about this really, but every single burglary, domestic burglary, the police will attend. Okay? If there are more burglaries because of the cost of living crisis, which is possible, the police are going to spend more time at people's houses that have been burgled. Now that you might say, well that's a good thing, because if my house gets burgled, I want the police there. But they're not going to be somewhere else. I know that's obvious, but I think it's probably worth saying at this stage. What my team does, and again this is the wrong word, but I think my team in all that is not the voice of reason, but a bit of conscience in there. In that I'm picking on the police tonight, I do apologise, and they're a lot taller than I am, but anyway, I can probably run faster. What we see a lot of is when big organisations are under the cosh, whether it's financial or time or whatever it is, that we tend to go into silo working a lot, and we concentrate on that one job. What my team does, which is quite unique, on a small scale, is try and prevent that happening. I use the word coordinated. That's really important, because that's what my team does. It's not completely unique in the council, but it's quite unique. So we are trying to get all of those agencies, whether it's the police, the probation service or social care, to work together to do that last thing, which is being able to prioritise where we can have the most impact, leading, which is really important, because a lot of the time people want to do the right thing, but they're kind of saying to each other, well, you do it, you do it, and well, we will lead on that, which we need to do. Tasking jobs out, not being afraid to ask people nicely to do things, and if they don't do it, tell them that they need to do it, and show them why it's important that they finish that job. And I've put complete, and I've underlined it. What I mean by that is finish what we do. It's not leave something hanging, because that isn't prevention. That's just creating another problem. Okay? Sorry, that felt like a lecture then. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be inclusive. But anyway, so Alan, are you ready? Yeah. I said the second part of the presentation would be delivered by a real person. Alan's as close as we've got in our team. This is Alan Watt. He's walking up to the stage. Alan, you're actually shorter than me. That's not a mistake. Alan is one of our sustainable community officers, aren't you, Alan? I am. I'm going to give you this. Don't copy about that. You want me to do it for you? You can have to do it, because I won't be able to hear you.
Good evening, committee. Good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Watt. I'm in the Sustainable Communities team. We're a new team. We are a new team. Only really started going since 21. We've got 21 people in the team at the minute, 3 seniors. Oh, don't look at the second one in there. What we're about is we work with our partners, including SYP, LAT, internals such as the ASB, housing, Fortify, Simon here, and community safety. We provide a highly visible uniform patrols in all areas of the city. We respond to issues through tasking forms usually, sent through to the ASB inbox. We collect intel and provide evidence to support action. We also support individuals, both vulnerable, include victim and witnesses as well. We carry out property checks, deliver court papers, monitor issues such as closure orders that Simon mentioned a bit earlier. Simon also mentioned prevention and response. While we're out there, obviously we're pretty visible. We like people to come up and say, "Excuse me, have you got a minute?" If it might not be trivial, it may be trivial to somebody, but if it's an issue that someone is really interested in, then it's not trivial. We'll try and signpost. If we can't answer it ourselves, we'll try and signpost it. But we'll always get someone to get back to someone, whatever. Whether it takes phone calls, emails, whatever. That's what we're about. Yes.
It can't be easy being standing next to you like this, but
you've done
that.
We've taken part in numerous community surveys in Darnell here, at Stoven Drive, around High Hazel School, and conducted support and reassurance patrols around Station Road with the police. We've also done some in Woodhouse in Baton. We've got good links and have kept good links with Helen and her staff at the Lincoln Stradbroke. We've been involved with open days with councillors, SYP, and also with the housing teams. We work with Hood and Abbey from the days of action, fly keeping. The amount of our talents is unbelievable. We'll try and do anything it's possible to do. Currently, my team is working with SYP in the Shadow area and around the students. We're rolling out smart water. This is a forensic security fluid, trying to keep their personal possessions safe and wrapped up in the event of burglaries.
Can I just say that? So talks about
here we are, Stoven Drive. Again, working with the police. And again at Stradbroke, with housing, local councillors and SYP. We conducted vulnerable vehicle checks in and around Stoven and around various places around Darnell. Cars showing things that laptops, phones, etc. that were in the windows that could quite easily be windows been broken by what's the word I'm after?
Criminals.
Criminals.
Yeah, was that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There were the High Hazels. It was a foul day that day. It was absolutely throwing it down. And I just say thank you to everybody who was out there because we got really wet. Okay. And again, Station Road after the incident, reassurance patrols.
Okay. Oh, that's a question. We're not doing that. There's 22 Allens.
21.
21.
21 and 3 seniors.
Right. And they're not all like Alan, so.
Thank God.
But as I said at the beginning, a lot of this is about visibility. A lot of this is about talking to actual human beings that are out on the street. That was you. Some of it is about increasing confidence. Some of it might be about reporting, trying to get people to, report more incidents of crime and antisocial behaviour. If you do see the likes of Alan out on the street, walk away. Not do the opposite of walk away. Come and talk to them.
We'll talk to them. Yeah, we'll take your information. You can't deal with yourself, we'll pass it on. Make sure someone does get back.
And other colleagues that have got here, we've got Zafar at the back, he's one of the seniors, and we've got Zaid at the moment who's claiming to have a sore throat, which is why he hasn't done any of the talking for the presentation. Don't worry, we'll check time, it's fine. So, Chair, we have the question for everybody, but
everybody wants to know.
Yes. Do you want me to do it now?
If you're ready for breakout groups, yes, please.
Right. We've just got one question. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We kind of expecting you to do a little bit of work as well. Now,
watch this for coordination. Are you watching? Hang on. Can we split the room into 3 bits? That side with Terry, middle and right. Zafar, go left, or it's your right. Don't want to confuse you. Say if you could go in the middle. Alan, can you take this side? Yeah. We've got one question before, but it's 2 questions. How can we improve what we do to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour issues? That's us. What can we do? What do you think we can do better? And how do you think you can help? Is that alright? I'm going to keep it up there so you can see it. How long, Chair?
Probably around 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most.
25?
20 minutes.
It's only one question. 20 minutes is fine.
It's quarter past 7.
You'll see sheets of paper on you. You should see sheets of paper on your table. If you're not, write on something. Try to save money. We'll come back in 20 minutes, Chair.
Yeah.
Just go through each of the 3 groups. Is that alright? Thank you.
Okay, so Simon's given everybody the instructions. There's 2 groups to the side and 1 in the middle. If you are leading, if these officers that are leading these groups of people, can you organise people? And can councillors join in each group, please? Okay, can we have a bit of hush, please, now, so we can feed back? Everybody, just settle down. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to go to this table here, if everybody wants to listen. And I don't know who your spokesperson is. I hope you've nominated somebody. So you're going to feed back on what the responses to the questions. Okay. And I think Diane's going to feed back from that table. I don't know about this table here.
David,
who's going to feed back? Is it David? Is it you? Okay. Well, somebody will feed back. I'm sure you've nominated somebody. Okay. Okay, everybody. So we're going to get somebody to feed back now. Can everybody listen? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm going to feed back briefly from this group. First of all, we didn't think we had enough time because we just got warmed up, and it's time to finish. We started off by saying it's a very broad subject, and crime covers a wide variety of issues. We said, the cost of living crisis is going to exacerbate acquisitive crime such as theft, etc. I actually said I'd steal food if my kids were hungry, and I think we're going to see a lot of that. And I think it's very different from things like violent crime and crime against women. And communities are key in that, because in many communities it's a very hidden issue, and I think we've got to work closely with the communities to do that. We talked about 101 versus 999. 101's pretty much of a disaster if a crime's happening, because it's finished before you can get through. We talked about community intelligence, building a picture of what's happening around in the area. So individuals aren't tackling it, but they're using their intelligence that they've gathered to pass on to police. We talked about was there a possibility of developing an app where you can build up that intelligence. So if you know that there's dealing going on in a certain area, can you input that into an app? So all the community's knowledge is put in one place, and we can find that. I think it's been suggested the university might be able to help, or some other organisation, to put that together. Is that about it? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Diane, are you ready to feed back?
Yes, sure. I shall pop it on this table and talk. Right, we had so much information and so much communication at our table in our group that I struggled to keep pace. We had a massive discussion about what the issues were,
about reporting and about confidence and about reducing people's fear and apprehension for reporting and reinforcing those positive messages and promoting positive behaviours in what we do in our groups and publicising good news so that people knew that doing the right thing worked and it wasn't a waste to use a portal to report crime or ringing 101 because there were good news stories that came out at the end of it. And then we went on to how important communication was and using a range of different methods, both to report to the police, but engage with the sustainable community officers, but also to report back into communities. So using local venues to give out these, this is how you can report. Using the methods that we have already so that people knew how they could give information to police and the sustainable community officers. Because I think it goes without saying, doesn't it, that none of us can act on what we don't know about. We're good, but we're not mind readers, so people have to report in. And that comes all the way through. People say, I'm not going to report because nobody will take any notice, or the police know about this because they raided that property only the other week. But they don't know what the ongoing story is, and the ongoing story and the ongoing picture might be just the thing to get that closure order or get that prosecution and to get that family to the support it needs or just basically out of there. So, it's publicising the routes and using the tools that we've got. And we spoke about using the routes that we do have so we weren't increasing expenses. So the statutory notices, putting a bit of information in there this year about the council tax increase notice, the rent increase letters and the electoral registration notices. They have to go out to every household. So can't we just put a message in there about the routes that we have that we can get information back in? We had a brilliant conversation about the routes that Archer Housing Association used to get information out to its tenants. And I know that other housing associations do this as well. I'm doing the BBC thing, aren't I? There are other housing associations available. But Archer has its own Twitter feeds. It has its own newsletter. It has its own Facebook page. And it has its own website. So if we gather information together and give them those messages, they can retweet or like or send it out to tenants. And those exist, so why don't we use them? That's a coordination activity that we can do for very little cost. I mean, Irene does for 50 plus, she sends out a monthly newsletter, and a lot of that is going through the Sheffield News links and just saying, oh, that's a good one, that will interest people, that's a good one, that will interest people. It's the only mailing list you ever need to be on. Sorry. And also, the last point I'm going to make is our sustainable community officers probably need their own Twitter page so that, they can get their message out there and they can get some feedback from people and become more visible. Is that it, Pete? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. That's two excellent feedbacks from the two people that fed back. Thank you very much. And last table, last but not least.
Who's doing it? David? No pressure, David.
No pressure after that, and I wasn't expecting to feedback, so people will find out if I was listening or not. So we covered very many similar things. I think the first thing we actually looked at was whether we should be taking a public health approach to community safety. Many of the issues are much wider than crime. It is down to lots of factors that a public health approach might help to tackle longer term. It doesn't help solve some of the immediate issues we've got, with criminality. But longer term, should this be linked to public health was, I think, an interesting point. that was raised. Communications, again, absolutely massive issue. 101 is such a pain that people give up with it. Is there an easier route into the team? And in particular, a point around a lot of this stuff. We know who it is, we know where they are, and we know when they're going to do it. But by the time it's got reported or through or responded to, it's happened, and you've got to wait till the next time. So is there a way of getting a quick report and a quick response to it? And just encouraging people in terms of communication to be able to provide the evidence that's needed then to pursue it, which is a massive barrier that people won't talk or won't give the evidence that allows stuff to be followed up. And again, in communications, the issues around, we're not all tech savvy. Personally speaking, can we get stuff out in other ways so that people know, whatever we've got out there, people need to know at least what we've got and how to get in touch with it and what they do. And, and we're not quite doing that at the moment. But events like this is good for that. People saying, I didn't know your service existed, but I'm here now, I know, and now I can tell other people. From the younger people here, again, important points about education. We need to get into schools and colleges and talk to kids and get them at a younger age and educate them around all sorts of things around this that can then perhaps, longer term, prevent some of the issues we're getting. So I hope, was that a reasonable summary of what we talked about? Good hope. I'll shut up then.
Thank you. We also talked about having an app, like when we want to report fly tipping and litter is really easy to do. So we talked about having an app where we can report ASB, and we talked about, so apps are really important, but we also said that posting letters or having paper copies to give to people with information, just because not everybody does have apps or smartphones, but we also talked about the importance of being able to report something really, really quickly and knowing where to report it to. For example, the sustainable officers were giving out their email addresses today, telling people how they can report to them, but a lot of the people around the table didn't really know about that already.
Thanks, everybody. Really, really good feedback. Absolutely brilliant, I think. And there's lots of practical things that Simon can take back. I mean, I like the public health approach and obviously all this idea about Twitter and various apps and different ways of communicating and making sure we cascade information down and we bring it back up again. So brilliant. I hope you can take that back and we can have that discussion. Maybe we'll have some of it at our next Task and Finish group as well. Thank you very much. Come to the end of the meeting. I think it's been really enjoyable, and I thank everybody for participating so well. I think everybody has done. I don't think there's any other business. No? So thank you once again for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it and have a good journey home. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.